everybody, we are so happy you are here. Thank you for coming back and joining us because today we are coming to you live from Living Felt because it's Happy Woolly Wednesday! And those angelic voices are the voices of all of the fairies here at Living Felt who are just eagerly awaiting to see you. We've been off the live show for a couple of weeks and dang it, we missed you. But everyone's been so busy, and in that time we've opened our doors again, so if you're in town you can come by and visit. Today we have a needle felting tutorial and we are going to needle felt our very first ornament of the year. We're going to make this cute little barn owl. It's oh so easy, definitely beginner friendly because we're going to break down those steps, and you can even make the head turned in different directions. We're going to show you how to do that today. So if you are watching the playback, you can hit fast forward. This beginning section, we always like to take a few minutes and say hi to our friends, bring the fairies on to show you some luscious, delicious, fibery stuff to play with, and that's what we're gonna do. So I am Marie, we are Living Felt, we are based in Central Texas, so if you're ever in the Austin area, come on out and say hello. And I want to say a big hello to some of our friends. We see Marion all the way in France. Hi, thank you so much for being here. And Brittany, how are you today? There's Fenny in Sweden, and Christina in Poland, Marlene in Oregon, and that's just a few of the folks. So if you're watching live, hit us up in that chat window, say hi and where you're from. You'll see it's an interactive show. We're going to take your questions during the demonstration, and if you participate, your name goes into our magic felted hat and you could win some prizes at the end of the show. If you're watching the playback, don't worry because we also give away prizes after the live feed. You're just going to have to comment down below. So real quick, for everyone, you're going to want to go to the description after the live feed and you can download the supply list. There will be a link to the supply list and a link to the kit if you want to felt along and make your very own. So check the description after the live feed. All right, enough business talk. Time to say hi to some of the fairies, and first up is Miss Fairy Hannah. Yay!
Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Happy to be back. We missed y'all so much. So I've got a fun little kit for you. It's also an owl, also very beginner friendly, but this kit is going to come with 12 beautiful MC1 colors, so you can personalize it and make your very own little felted owls. So next up, I got Miss Holly for y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Woo woo, Holly.
Hi everyone! I love fall, I love pumpkins, and today I'm going to show you our needle felting a pumpkin kit. It comes with some of our great orange colors. I can talk today. Some of our great MC1 and some different oranges and greens, and you get a little bit of our wild vine locks, which are like a super hot commodity. You also get the core wool, the felting, the foam. I really can talk. I'm just so excited about pumpkins, I can't contain myself. And also the needles. So this is the cute little pumpkin, and you can make a few of these with this kit, or then a little bit smaller. And this is actually one of the very first kits I ever bought before I worked here. And I did it, my very first ever thing, so if I can do it, you can do it.
Yay!
And now, yay me. So now we have Fairy Becca.
Woo!
Hi guys, Fairy Becky here. So today I wanted to show you our Fall Fun Studio Pack. So if you're looking to replenish your fall fiber stash, I've harvested the perfect color palette for you, of course. So in each of our studio packs you get 6 colors with ½ ounce increments, and they can vary from round to round depending on the colors we pull. But of course it's all MC1 fiber, which is a medium crimpy fine fiber that is perfect for both needle felting and wet felting. For example, we have these awesome needle felted leaves that you can just cut out and use as a table runner. You can put it on some hats or something, but if you go to our downloads page, we have that there for you up there. Let me show you real quick the colors that are in this current round. We have pomegranate, true olive, mango, espresso bean, red grapefruit, and true violet. Again, a really beautiful color palette that I believe you'll be falling for. All right, up next is Fairy Ann.
Hi friends, thank you so much for being here with us today. As Marie mentioned, today's project, it's a kit and it's ready to journey to you as soon as tomorrow. In this kit, you're going to have all of the wool needed, a core wool, MC1 needed to make your own owl ornament. We've got glass eyes, string to hang him. Some other recommended tools might be foam and needles if you don't already have any. But we are so excited for this project and we can't wait to see yours.
Yay!
Thank you so much, y'all. Next up, Fairy Kayla.
Woo! Thanks, Ann.
Hi everybody. Thanks, Ann. That project looks like a real hoot. I'm showing off a couple new exciting things that we got in the shop today, and Marie's actually going to be using them in her tutorial as well. So we've got this wonderful glossy satin red ribbon, perfect for ornaments, but if you're going for a little more of a rustic feel, you can never go wrong with the jute string, and you'll get a whole spool, which is awesome. And then not to mention, our doll needles have been out for a while, but they're back and bigger than ever. This one's actually 5 inches long and it comes in a pack of 2. So yeah, we got those back. And I do have one more question for you. What do you call a magical owl?
What do you call a magical owl?
Houdini.
Oh!
All right, I'll get out of here now. That's all the owl puns I have. Turn it back to Miss Marie.
Oh man, aren't they fabulous? I really, really, really love the fairies. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, first of all, thank you so much for being here. And second of all, that is a sampling of our crew. They are the folks that answer the phone, answer your emails and questions. They're the ones who lovingly and thoughtfully pack your orders and make all this fabulous stuff that you see. So I want you to know that that fairy goodness is infused with absolutely everything you get from our shop, even if it's just an email. So we're happy to help you by phone anytime. If you have any questions, we'll be posting our phone number in the description. It's also on our website, so if there's any questions we can help you with something, we will. But for today, let's jump into our project, and I'm excited to share it with you. So it's really just a simple owl. It's like the semi-realistic owl. We're going to be making some wings and putting in glass eyes, and I'll also show you how to hang the ornament. That was interestingly a big question we had last year, and I came up with a way that I like for hanging mine. So that's what we're going to do today. I would like to start by showing you the colors that we're going to be working with. We are working with our MC1 batting, which is the same stuff the gals were just showing you, and you'll see that we work with it a lot when we needle felt. It's a domestic fiber, meaning based here in the United States, and it's short and crimpy, and if you already work with it, maybe post a little note there and tell someone why you like it. But it's short and crimpy, it'll needle felt really smoothly, and also I'll show you those colors right now. Here's what we have. The primary color is caramel, and I thought it would be fun to remind you, like, caramel is so flexible. Remember, we used it for our needle felted pie pincushion. So that's going to be the primary color on our owl. And then some accent colors will be clay and willow. Just a tiny bit of dark chocolate. You could also use espresso if you want. And I'm going to be using the tiniest bit of peachy. This is a very popular skin tone in our line. So these are the primary wool colors we're going to be working with. And just a few other things that you might need will be a sheet of felt. We have our 100% wool felt in the kit, and we're going to be working with 4mm glass eyes for this little tiny guy. Ours come on a little pole, and I'll show you how to install them. A chenille stem, the ribbon or something to hang your little guy with that Kayla showed you, and then of course our core wool, and today I'm going to be working with our core wool roving. Other things you might have is glue if you want to glue your eyes in, some strong thread, also we're going to use that for mounting our guy, hanging him, sharp scissors, wire cutters for the glass eyes, and here are the felting needles I will be working with today. We're going to start with our 36, which is, I'll put them on the felt so you can see them, 36 triangle, which is a coarse needle, a 38 star, which is a real good workhorse. I might use that 40 triangle, and this is a 42 triangle, which is a finishing needle, and then I'll work with a little cluster of the finishing needle as well for working on my guy. So why don't we get started here and start making our owl. I'm very excited to make this with you. So Anna's going to be feeding me your questions and or comments as we get together, and I'm going to get myself set up here. So before we get started, are there any questions I should address?
No questions yet. Everyone's just ready to be back.
Cool, cool, cool. Thanks for being here, y'all. Okay, so let me get my stuff put away. We've taken a few weeks off, been working on our school, and if you don't know about that, our online felting school will be coming on here before the end of the year. We're really hoping to do it in September, and if you're not familiar with that, we'll join our Facebook group. Let me post that for you. Our Facebook group is where we hang out all week, and we always share information there, and you can also get on our newsletter, and I'll just post there's our web address if you don't know us, and our newsletter goes out almost every Saturday of the year, and we post information there too. Cool. Okay, so the first thing we need to get started with our project is we're going to make the under owl. That's what I always call the under parts, and we like to use core wool so that we don't waste all of our dyed wool. Dyed wool is more expensive. This core wool is our CW1 core wool. It's the roving form, which means it's like a strip of the batting and comes in a really long shape. This is ideal for working with this project, and really the owl weighs less than half an ounce in the under owl, so I think it's like 3/10 or 4/10 of an ounce is really all you need to get him going. We're going to take our chenille stem, and that's going to be the spine or the formation of our under owl. Here we go. Okay, cool. So take your chenille stem, and we're going to fold it over just about, you can fold it just to about the third point here. Put your finger in there so you just leave a little bit, I want you just to leave a little bit of a loop there, just like that. And I'm going to twist this down. I like to just hold a little opening here in the chenille stem and then twist. This doesn't have to be perfect. We just want a little shape to build our owl on. And if you decide you want your owl smaller than mine, you can cut your wire as well. So then I like to fold up the bottom so that we don't want any pokey-outy parts with these wires. You always want to fold them back to some degree, even if you cut it. And then just twist that part back on. All we're making here is a little spine to build our shape around, and it's going to make it a lot easier to make it firm and get it into the shape we want. It's ideal with this project if you open this a little bit. It's a little better to kind of flatten the head to get a round head than to pull it real tall. So just go ahead and bring it around, and then take a strip of your core wool. And here's the key, really, when you're working with core wool. When you're you want to build an understructure and you want it to be really tight and firm, is wrap it really tight in the first place. So take your core wool and go ahead and split that thickness, whatever you have. I don't even know how much I have here, but split the thickness, because the more narrow it is, the easier it's going to be to control. And we want to control this with every wrap. Every wrap, you want to control it. Take that small pinch and shove it through this little window here that you've created, and you can pull it up a little bit. Don't pull it too taut. I would rather you fill it. And then we're going to go fold, 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 and then wrap this top part down. I call this the cotton swab tip, and meaning the cotton swab tip. This is a tip. You fold this down, and then we're going to wrap over, over, over. At least that many times. But notice, for those of y'all who are brand new, that I've not let go of tension. And I've not torn this off. I want to have as much of a long stream as I can. And this is where I switch hands. I'm going to switch hands, and I don't flip this over because that makes it airy and gives me lots of folds and lots of just baggage. I want it tight. So I'm going to just keep twisting this and guide it with my thumb and forefingers. Now this batting, our CW1 core wool batting, it's also a US product. Don't go too thick on the tail. But what you'll find is that it really grips onto itself. If you get that pressure in the first place. You can let go and it doesn't unfurl. So, I mean, it will if I let go of this end, but here we go. We're gonna take this part and we're gonna do the same thing, and that's just fold it up and then keep twisting over it. I don't want my tail too thick, so if it feels too thick, go back and take some off. But just a couple of twists there, and we can go back up the body. So I know that sometimes you might think that you can't go back over your piece, but with this batting, you can. Now, I like to start to control the shape of the head and the body separately. So if you want, stop right there and leave that. This will be the head part. Leave that part without any additional wool, and just give the body a few more wraps. Now this just looks like nothing so far, which is perfect, and I'm going to tear it off right here. Well, I've never let go of pressure. Twist, twist, twist. Use your hands, and you're basically getting these fibers to mat together right now without even needle felting it yet. And the better you can do that, that is, keep out the air and get all that wool to grip down without needle felting, the easier it's going to be to needle felt because you have less air to go through. I am working with my 36 triangle, which is a nice coarse needle, and notice my angle so that I do not poke the wire. Now this wire is not all that hard, but your wire might be even more coarse than mine, and all we want to do is needle felt this little under owl right now and get it nice and firm. If you don't have a 36 triangle, try a 38 star. If you don't have that, then if you only have fine needles, then make yourself a little cluster of your fine needles. Just don't poke them too deeply, and you'll get more of a gradual compression, but you'll still get a very strong compression. So this is a cluster of 4 of our 42 triangles just rubber banded together. And if they start to splay out at the end, then just make your rubber band come down further and it'll hold them more together. So go with a nice coarse needle. You could also use a blue 32 if you have that to start, or a 36. You could hold 2 needles if you prefer. And what we want to do right now is really get that under shape going. And it doesn't take long because we have compressed most of the wool in the wrapping. The firmer your under owl is, the easier it's going to be to get a great shape on the outside and on the finished piece and a nice smooth finish. I know lots of people have a challenge with getting a smooth finish, and one of the things that really helps is the type of wool you put on the outside. And if you haven't worked with our MC1 wool, we hope you'll give it a try because it's really satisfying to needle felt. Now this has the big hole in there. That's okay. We just want to firm all of this up, and then we can start shaping our little guy under here. So let me get the head shape and the body shape going. And again, take your, this is the same length I was working with. Feel free to go ahead and strip it down so it's a little bit smaller. And if ever you feel like you're having challenges with the wool, just remember that you're in charge. That's what we tell all the fairies when they first start working here too. The wool can seem kind of bossy, but you're in charge, so just make it do what you want. When you start a new piece, the first thing you want to do is anchor it down with a couple of needle felting pokes. Notice I'm only poking to the middle of the piece. I'm never poking through to the foam. There's no reason to do that. And now we're just wrapping the head round and round. And whenever you want to round the top of a piece, go ahead and let the wool stick up over it a little bit. You don't have to try and wrap it over. You can let that wool just stick up over a little bit, and then we'll coax it around. I can also show you, if we have time, if you end up like with a flat back head, how you can kind of pile wool on top. You always want to put a little more than you think you need because you're going to be compacting it. And this feels like a nice little roundness here, and so I'm going to pull off what I don't need. Don't put on more than you need. And again, twist it in your hands so you're dry felting a little bit. And now we have this join. So always remember, when you have a join, when you have a loose bit, don't needle felt against it. Needle felt against it, with it. It's like the Aikido of needle felting. Go with the flow that's already happening. And just needle felt this all down. Take the top parts and needle felt up over the top like this. So gather all those fibers around, and they will help round out your piece. Always trying to create you want no folds, no obvious folds in your piece if you can avoid it. And let's needle felt this nice and firm. And remember our firmness test. We usually share it. We have a dedicated video for it that's like 10 yeyears old to 11 years old. It's like from 2009. But here's what you want to do is get this all nice and firm and then build up the body the same way. So when you build up the body, I like to sort of build up the chest and not the tail too much, but you could twist around and just notice how easy it is to taper this when you're working with such small little amounts. So to get your under owl shape, in the kit, we're going to have a little shape guide. It's just a suggested shape guide to match the owls that we're making on the show today, and you'll be able to, hold your piece up to that piece of paper if you want and see how you're doing on your shape. So needle felt this whole guy down until he's nice and firm, just following the same process, and you have the shape that you want. And in the essence of time, I'm going to jump to a piece that is a little further progressed, but I want to tell you, if you're just starting, don't be shy about the time it takes to form an under something, under bird, under dog, under dragon, under doll, because spending that time going from this loose, gassy bagginess to a piece that is well shaped, you can rub your hands on and it doesn't get roughed up. It's just well formed. There's no substituting the quality of the piece that you're going to get when you create a really firm underpiece. So take the time, and you can see how these two shapes are essentially the same. Just one is a little less formed or a little less needle felted than this one. And all you're going to do is keep needle felting. You can switch from this needle if you want, but this needle is going to help really drive the wool in and compact it. And if it feels like the wool is going away, then you just add more. You don't want to underfelt for the sake of a shape. Instead, add more wool and keep compacting until your piece is nice and firm. So that firmness again, if you were to press onto this little owl, he's about as firm as if you hold these two fingers together and press on this part of your thumb. That's how firm he is. He's not as hard as my table, but he's about as hard as this part if I'm putting my ring and my thumb together or my pinky finger and my thumb together. That's how firm he is, and that's what you want to shoot for. Cool? So shape your owl, and if you, like I said, if you have the kit, let me see. Let me grab the paper. If you have the kit, we're just going to give you a little shape so that you can kind of model the same size of shape so that the other shapes that we give you support. Okay, so before we move on, do we have any questions?
We have a couple.
Thanks for being here, y'all. We're glad to see you again.
Darian wants to know, can you use any type of wire, or does it have to be a chenille stem for the base?
Oh, so Miriam asked about the wire. Just use something that's nice and malleable. We also work with aluminum wire. You might have something that's like, I probably wouldn't, there's no reason to go any heavier than like an 18 gauge, but I probably wouldn't go, fine to less than a 20 gauge or higher than a 20 gauge, because you don't want it to be loose. You want it, when you make that little part, you want it to hold up so that you can pose it once you have the wool on. You don't want that every time someone touches it, it's going to go boop. If the underwire is too weak, then posing it or just giving your tail a curve or whatever, just be a little more challenge. And you also want to have something that feels like a firm spine to go towards when you're needle felting. If you try needle felt this without a core and you don't use the skewer method that we teach, it would be a lot more challenging. But if you're a purist and you don't use wire, that's okay too. Some people don't use wire. Okay, so the next thing I like to do with these owls is jump to preparing the wings, because I want the wings to be the right size. And in the kit, we're going to give you these little patterns. So in the patterns for the wings, you're going to go, in the pattern, in the kit, you're going to get a pattern, and you're going to cut 2 of these wing shapes, and you'll cut them out of your wool felt. So you can just cut them out of the pattern or trace them over your window, whatever you want. You're going to cut 2 of them. This is just 100% wool felt. If you have other commercial felt, it'll probably work pretty fine too, but it's got to be able to take the wool, and you don't want it to crimp up on you a bunch. And then you can cut 2 of these or just 1, and I'll show you the difference. And so I'd like to form the wings now so that we get them the right size for your body. And if your body is a little bit smaller, then cut the wing at the top right here. Or just use this as a basic guide, but you can make them a little bit shorter. And we're actually going to use these felt pieces in our wings. I'm going to get those going right now. So I am using I forgot to show you this. This is our CX2 Winter White, and it is a very bright white. So next to our core wool, you can see how bright white it is. It's very bright, and it's different than our MC1. It's a little bit different. It's a little more coarse. So we're going to take just a tiny piece of this fiber, and it can actually be very thin, and we're going to coat what will be the outside of the wings. I want it to look white. And so I'm just going to lay it right on the wool and fold this over. And we're only covering the very edge, really. Most of the wing is not going to show all that much. I'm using a 42 triangle, and I'm just going to needle felt it right to the felt. And I'm not going in very far, 1/4 of an inch, a couple of centimeters. It may be hard to see because they're both white-ish, but I am just tacking it to the felt. The top, it can stick off the top. The bottom, where it's extra, you just want it to come around. You want it to come around both sides, and then you can pull off that extra. And needle felt it from both sides. Don't worry about it poking through the back. And just pull it taut with your hand like this when you go to needle felt it on. Just pull it taut. And all this extra on top, don't pull it off. Just leave it on. We're going to use it to help attach to the bird. Okay. Now the bottom part, go ahead and clean up this bottom part just by dragging it up onto the wing. And again, if you're a purist, if you don't like the idea of using wool felt in your wool item, then you can use these little templates just to shape your wings and as a guide, and I will show you that when we get to our next wing part. But this wool felt takes needle felting very well. It doesn't distort, and it just is going to add a bit of dimension to your bird. And it really does actually make the going a little bit faster. Okay, so you're going to cover both wings the same way, and that's just with a little fold over, and where you see my finger here, that's all just wool felt underneath. So the fiber is not coming over any further than this little exposed part that you see. That's all you really need. And on the bottom, you can pull off any excess. I will cover the top of my wing with a thin little bit of caramel, one of the favorite colors for animals. Like I said, in our MC1 batting, we use this a lot for needle felting, and we've colored it to be, we call the colors of life. So many of the colors that we make it in represent something in real life, and this is a very popular animal color in general, caramel. So all you need to do is you can plop this on top of the wing, but what will help is if you stop it just shy of the edge of the wing. It's just a little piece of vegetable matter, sheepy stuff. Don't worry about that, just pull it out. And so this line doesn't need to be all that clean. You can just pile it on just like that. And the bottom, though, we're going to taper it just to the bottom of the wing, so just pull off the excess, and again, let the top stick up off. So now we're just going to needle felt this to one side, and with your needle is how you're going to guide any of these little stray fibers. Just guide them on, and I like to felt it almost up to the edge of the wing. Don't worry about poking all the way through, but I am using my 42 triangle needle, which is very gentle, and all I want to do is tack it down to the surface of the wing. So guide it around and tack it down. And the bottom here, we do want to, this bottom part is actually going to show, the whole thing will. So you can wrap it around the back like that if you want, or you can stop it shy. But the bottom part of this wing is going to show, and so I'll show you on my little guy here. We're making the wing that's underneath here, and so you might like it with a little white, because their wings tend to be white underneath. But I don't know, I haven't investigated all the variations. You can even make your wing patterns more correct than mine, but you might like to have a little white show, or you might like to have it 100% caramel. So if you want a little bit of white to show, then just peel it off. But go ahead and leave a little bit on the top for sure for attaching. And all you have to do is tack all of this down and get it nice and neat how you want it. So spend a few minutes doing this on both of your wings. And it's optional whether you put any patterning on right now. I'm going to save that for another step. So cover your wings and spend a little time on that detail. I have a couple here that I prepared so that I make good use of your time. And really, they still look kind of this rough when you're done with them initially, both of those parts. They look a little rough, but what I've done is I've tacked all of this part down, and I've left a little off the back for attaching. Since most of it's going to be covered on my bird under this wing, it's not that important. You could cover less if you wanted, but most of that is not going to show. So set these two aside, and then what we're going to do is make the larger part of the wing feathers. Before I jump to that, do we have any questions, Anne?
Yes.
Okay, I'll pause for a few questions.
Norma asks, can you use any color of felt?
Oh, can you use any color of felt? Sure, the felt, the way we use it is designed to be 100% covered, so that really shouldn't be an issue. But if you did have black and you were trying to cover it with white, you might find that black requires a little more fiber. It might just be that the two colors that are similar just blend a little more easily, that's all. But it is designed to be 100% coverage, so you should be good there. Any other questions?
Yes, going back to the under owl, Mandy asks, is it possible to make it too hard or too firm?
Okay, so the question is it possible to make your under owl too hard? You always want, I call it, a little bit of feltability or receptivity in your piece. If you make the piece so hard, and maybe some of you can relate and some of you cannot, like some of you have never felted something this hard, but if you felt something so hard, what you find is every time you poke in your needle at that point, if you're using a coarse needle, that it just leaves a giant hole, and the whole thing just looks like it has great big pores in it. And it's because everything you poke, it's like all of the wool is stretched so tight. So I would say just that firmness that I said to you, about that firm is firm enough. Like, you don't need to get it so hard, because then it makes it a little bit harder for the outer layers you're putting on to blend nicely. They need somewhere to go, and in order for them to have somewhere to go, the bottom layer and the top layers need to be able to tighten together. And if you've ever tried to needle felt onto a styrofoam ball, you will understand, because the styrofoam ball, although it's crumbly, is very rigid, and people are trying to felt onto that styrofoam ball, but there's nothing underneath to really bind with it. And when we're felting, we're entangling fibers together, so you want the underneath fibers to be able to receive what's coming in. That's my best explanation. Leave a little feltability. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, a few felting prints want to know if they could use pre-felt instead of the felt sheet.
Yeah, I definitely considered that you could use pre-felt. Just note that the more delicate your pre-felt, the more likely the edges are going to want to split under that felting needle. So you might just test the pre-felt that you have, but some pre-felt is so delicate and other pre-felt might be so thick that it ends up making really thick wings. And you may not mind that, or if you're making a bigger bird, it might seem like, making them thicker works for you. So I just say test, play with it, see how you like it. And you don't have to use the felt at all. So I'm going to show you now how we make these little back larger wings, just using this as a guide and not putting the felt in. You can do it just like we did with the other wings. I don't know the proper wing names, but you can do it just like we did with the long wings, or you can do it like we're going to do now. So let's look at this. Okay, so this is another piece, and in the instructions or in the pattern it says to cut 2. If you want to do it this way, you can just cut 1. And we're going to use it, it's sort of like a reverse cookie cutter method, and I'm going to pick the, let's see, this is just a little bulky, so I'm going to peel a little bit off. And we need it just, the wool needs to be just a little bit bigger than our piece, and this is like a half thickness. So when you get our wool off of a bat, it's really lofty and thick, and this is like the normal thickness. Some ends are tapered where it's been torn to shape. Some ends are a little more blunt, and all you have to do is just peel that thickness, just like that. Now in the kit, is it already, the thickness already split? Okay, so in the kit, the thickness is probably already split, and they're already the thickness that you need. All right, what you'll do then is take your little shape, and again, it's kind of like a reverse cookie cutter shape, and we want a little bit of this perimeter. You can leave more on the top, like that, leave a little bit above that shape, but around the edges, just give yourself a small perimeter. 1/4 inch, less. You need enough to fold back over, and here's what we're going to do. Take your, I'll work with my same fine needle, and we are going to start getting our pattern right around our shape. So this shape you can just cut out of paper or cardstock or felt if you want to keep it around if you're going to do this method, or you can cover it in wool if you want it to be a little beefier like our other wings. So this is all we're doing, is tracing out a shape. So I have this little U shape, and I'm going to fold all of this wool back into the middle. It's semi-attached to my foam, but I'm using a gentle needle, so I'm just using the foam like nothing more than just a temporary little sticky pad. I'm not trying to attach, I'm not trying to get my fibers embedded into the foam. There's no reason to be overly aggressive. This foam has been used so many times for so many projects just like this, and the key to preserving your foam is to not permanently attach wool to it. Okay, that is all we need. So we have a little rough draft. That's the underneath side of the wing, so I'm going to peel it off, and this is going to be the top. So we're going to make 2 wings just like this, and this is kind of my shorty cut method for patterning the wings. We're going to half pattern the wings while they're off the bird. You can tack this down a little bit more. Don't worry about the needle holes on this part. Don't worry about it being a little bit rough. Everything is going to get scooted in as we work on our bird, and even these edges. Now these edges you can go around and take your gentle needle, just go right in and give them a little more body. And if you want to get them, we're not going to overly form this piece, but if you want to get them just, if they feel a little too loosey-goosey, then you can put them in here between like 2 pieces of cards or cardstock and needle felt them down. You just want them to have a little, you don't want them to be loose and splayed out. You want them to have a little bit of body. So needle felt this gently, not as firm as our under owl. And this is a suggestion for patterning the wings. I'm going to take a little bit of our clay, and you want longer strips as opposed to shorter strips, and then you want narrow strips like this, and you might even switch, like try a 40 triangle or a 38 triangle or something like that, and we're going to run 5 strips right up this guy. I always leave one side a little bit wider than the other. Your 2 wings will always be the opposite, by the way, the long wings and these wings. And we're just going to needle felt this on. It's okay that it's just a rough draft. Pull a little bit, like leave a little bit off the top, that's fine. We're going to use those for attaching, and then we'll come back and we'll attach all of these down below. So all you have to do with this wool is just take it and pull it out. And sometimes you might like to, if you don't have good planning skills, which happens to me, you might put one on each end and then find your way in the middle. But I've been putting 5 on these little owls and needle felt these all down. So keep needle felting until you get, run this up the middle. And then what you can do is go back when you get the 5 in and you can firm this up a little bit. So what you're going to end up with are 2 of these guys just like that. 2 little wings that just look like that. Now you might decide to go with a little darker accents on yours. We're going to come back and each of these little stripes is going to represent what you see is more like a fold in this wing, and then we're going to come back and add the patterning onto the back. So the last thing we need to make if we want to make all our wings is this little feather bridge here, and I just eyeballed that one. I don't even have a pattern for it, so I'll grab some fiber and I'm just going to make this one freehand. So set these guys aside, and he's no thicker, like my thumb, he's no thicker than my thumb, so let's pull off more than a thumb's width. And these things are real, this kind of patterning is real loose, so now I'm just gonna needle felt about the width of my thumb. Don't put your thumb there, just eyeball it. Don't put your thumb there. I'm not playing chicken. Fold these sides in just like that first. Just tack them down. Fold the sides in. And then fold the bottom up. This is just a little tiny like tail feather piece. And you don't want any loosey bits out sticking off the sides. You want everything contained in the middle. Okay, that's about it. This little guy. And just what you will want to do though is work on him a little bit so he's a little more ready to go onto your bird, meaning this part right here at least is needle felted, not rock hard but smooth. It's a lot harder to needle felt once it's on the bird. It's a lot harder to get it cleaned up and shaped. So spend a little time, needle felt the sides in and needle felt the top. And you might want to wait to add the patterning till you're sure that the size is correct. If the size is not correct, you could either just remake it or cut it or do a little fold dealy like I'm going to show you on the big wings. Okay, how are we doing so far?
Doing great.
Are y'all having fun?
Oh, for sure.
They are?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I thought it was not too soon to start making Christmas ornaments, but fall's, owls are great for fall too. So you can park them on your fall wreath or your fall decorations for a while until your Christmas tree comes out. All right, so that little guy is pretty ready for me, and he's ready to go. And actually, so what we do is we have our wings made. We have these big broad wings, we have this little tail feather, which is going to be underneath there, and then we have our side wings, which are going to be peeking out on the sides. These are kind of our owl wing parts. But we are going to set these guys aside and start working on the face. It's just nice to have those ready because when you want to plan what direction your head is turned, the wings help you visualize it a little bit if you get them ready. So this guy is just straight going forward. Anne and Hannah agreed today that owls are pretty stoic. And for this, where's my bird? I know I have one around here somewhere. Did I lose him? No, here he is. Okay, for this little guy, I thought what we would do is turn his head sideways, and sometimes that can be a little difficult to envision. So this guy is facing straight, and if the tails are going the same way, then like this, then that means the wings would be more in the front. If you can't really see it, you can put a little draft piece of fiber down to mark where the wings will be as you plan the face. And so again, this guy is facing forward, and if let's make the tails just kind of bent the same way. If this guy's head is facing us but his body is turned, then this wing would be more like here. And again, this line that I'm putting in is nothing more than just a visual clue of how he might look. So I'm just going to put a little line down that would suggest where his wing might go so that he feels like his face is turned sideways. So let's start to work on that face. How do we build the face? One of the things that's so cool about barn owls is their nose bridge. And I personally found it kind of a challenge because it takes me, I would have to study an animal no fewer than 10 times to capture all the features. Like doing realistic things is a challenge for me. Semi-realistic is about as close as I ever seem to get. But I'm okay with that. Like the essence of owl works for me. We're going to make a little nose bridge using our core wool. And so we just want to build up a little bump under there and study a few different pictures of these owls, and you'll see that they're different. They're not all one the same, not their feather coloring, not the, you know, the shape of their, it's probably not called their nose, but someone knows what it is. This is what I'm going to do to build this nose bridge. If you have a little wooden toothpick, that would work too. I do have one in my drawer, but I'm going to use my needle. I'm going to take the tiniest, thinnest little strip of core wool, and I'm going to fold it over my needle and start to build just a tight tube. Just something just like that. I don't think you can necessarily, you could make it too big, but you know, just about like that. If I can show to you what it looks like, that'll probably get us there. We just need a nice strong mound underneath there to anchor our fiber to. So I'm going to tear that off. I can't quite tell you how thick it is, but I'll pull it off here in a second and you'll see it. Twist, twist, twist on your needle. Go ahead and taper one of the ends down, and we have like sort of this bulbous thing happening. We did something similar to this on, was it on our waffa bird? I did this. So then we're going to push this off, and now what we have is this little tube that we're going to put down and make his nose bridge. So again, his face is turned. I'm going to put it right on there and see, can I start to see that that's what his little nose bridge will be like? And we haven't needle felted it yet, so it's going to give us some pliability so that it doesn't go on top of his head. You know, we don't really want it on top of his head. We want it sort of comes down into a forehead and then that starts. But we're going to take this and anchor it backwards. So this is his face. I'm going to put it what seems like upside down on his face. Can you see that? It's facing long ways. Put it upside down on his face, and I'm going to anchor it right here. Anchor that tail, the tip of that in. And I'm going to pull this back so that it's more like that. And then be willing to scooch it down a little bit so it gets more where you want. And if it feels like your piece is too long, start to tack it down for a second. This is just, you know, piecing, planning as you go. Start to tack it down for a second, and if it seems like your piece is way too long, now's the time to just cut it off if you have too much bulk. But I think this can be shaped down, and I'm going to go after that very tip first so that where it comes in from the top of his head, I'm going to needle felt that down and really compress that fiber. And everything else I'll blend up on top. So we're going to start to form this bridge, and now you want to start to shape it also. So it seems like they're broader at the top than at the bottom. So start to shape it and get a good point going underneath there. And don't let it be too long also. So sculpt that down. We need room for the face. So sculpt this down. And really you just need this big support under here. Now I'm just going to needle felt into all of it. So it just kind of looks like that. It looks like this big blob on his face. And again, if this part feels like it's too, pronounced, if you can, I usually say that if you can press into it with your finger, then you can needle felt it down. And if you feel like you just can't, then you can snip it off and then just taper it. Because what we'll do with this right here is we're going to put a little patch of our CX2 white right over the top and cover his little face with pure white to give us a nice little background to work on. So take a real thin piece, Don't worry about it going up over where it should be. It's okay. That totally doesn't matter that it goes up above where it should be. We're going to trim out that face in just a minute. This is just going to be like the background of our canvas. So you don't need more than you need, but don't worry about forming that exact round shape right now. So put this right over where's going to be the face area. Use your fine needle, and now we're going to tack all of this down. And we're going to have a little white canvas. Your fine needle, your 42 needle, so that you don't leave great big holes. If you don't have that, maybe a 40 spiral. We're going to be covering all of this anyway, except on the nose. We're going to keep shaping the nose, and you might decide to give your guy a dark line down or not. It's totally up to you. So I'm using my fine needle. I could also be using my 40 triangle. All I really want is all this laying down. We're going to be putting plenty of stuff on top of this guy. We just want the white to lay down. And now's a good time. You can even start to go with a little more of an aggressive needle and start to shape that nose bridge. And notice that my strokes go from blah, 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 pouncy, pouncy in there, to a real deliberate shaping and sculpting of what will be his beak. So there are different strokes for different intentions. And if you're new to that, you may not recognize it at first, but your more aggressive needles very often, especially when you're really shaping, require more of a driving, purposeful driving than just poke, 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 poke. You'll find that you have more control. Okay, we have our face covered, and now we want to plan where our eyes are going to go. But before I jump to that, is there anything I need to address?
Yes, going back to
questions. Go ahead.
going back to making the wings, Joan asks, would twisting the strips make them easier to control as you're laying them down?
Going back to making the wings, twisting the strips. You mean for my stripes?
Yes.
I didn't want them twisted per se, but you certainly could if you want. This batting will hold together just fine, and we're going to be needle felting into those a lot more. Those lines that I put on the wings are not meant to sit on top. We're going to be driving into them, so you don't want them so hard that you can't compress them in further, that your needle wants to scoot by them, because they're actually going to be divisions in the wing as opposed to a feature that sits on top. But you certainly can give it a little bit of a twist if that's easier for you. Okay, we good to move on with the head? Okay, good. All right, so our face is just really just a blank little slate. What we want to do is get our eye sockets in and trim the face and start to give him a little more detail. Here we have our little guy, and his face is going to be turned. This is where you want your aggressive needles. You can start with a 36 if you have a 32, which is more coarse. And the eyes sit right just on the side of that nose bridge or whatever. And you can always play with it a little bit. So I'm just going to drive this needle right in and make an eye socket. That's what we need to do. Drive it in and make an eye socket. So your coarse needles can be really great for this. And you'll know because they'll be able to just really indent that wool and make a hole in there for you. So try and get them in the same place, and they're just right on the side of the nose. We went with a 4mm glass eyes for this kit. Often we see that owls have great big eyes, but these eyes are kind of small but really rounded, and the 4mm was probably the closest we could get for this. Without going to the bead eyes. I like the eyes on a pole for this. So now looking at the side of the head, I probably want to shape this a little bit more here, and we can even add a little more to the top of the head if you want. But now's the time. Shape that, get that nose bridge, get all of this, turn the profiles so you see it and it starts to look how you want it to look. All right, I'm going to show you how we add the wool out to build the face, and the first thing I like to do is trim the face. I used clay for mine. You can use whatever you like. Again, I just take a little strip of the fiber, and what we're going to do is create this little trim that kind of defines the face of the owl. Yours could be darker if you want. And I just drafted out a little bit. This wool will largely do what you want it to do. And I start right here in the middle where the nose is. In this case, I'm just going to use anchor it in with my 38, and then all you do is just shape it. You don't need any kind of template or anything. You're just going to shape it and draft it out as you go. I leave it loose like that, and now we're going to tack it down in the shape that we want. Don't worry about it being too wide, because we're going to be covering this area with white fibers coming out like feathers on the face. So it can be, it can be a little bit wider than you might think it should be. And if you just tack it down loosely, sort of like in draft form, then you can always come back and reshape it if you want, so the two sides match. Are y'all gonna make some owls? Are they? Is everyone gonna make some owls?
Yeah, but Lori says, oh my goodness, owls are fun for all year long. Sandy says that she's got a barn owl living near her house, so this is perfect timing.
I was working on this kit, so we have barred owls and some other kind of owls. I don't even know what they are. I hear them. But bird owls, I said barred owls. Bird owls, we have bird owls. And then there's some other owls, but I never see them. And this year I haven't seen them at all. They usually sit in the pecan tree, like a pair would sit in the pecan tree right outside my studio window and hunt. This year I haven't seen them, but the other night I was working on this kit and I was like, where are these guys? How come they haven't come back so I could have their spirit here while I was working? And I swear he was right in that tree just hooting away.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't see him. I didn't want to scare him away. But, owls can take off with like a single downbeat, a single silent downbeat of their wings, and they're just gone. There was, I don't know if it might still be on Netflix, but years ago there was a special on owls. It was so amazing. Okay, so that is basically all we're going to do. Mine's a little off center, so get it. That's why you just kind of tack it down in draft mode until you get that shaping right. So get the shaping so it feels like how you want it. Don't worry too much about the perimeter, because we're going to be adding wool over the top, but you can get it so you're a little more happy with the overall shape. This is going to be the backdrop for the feathers that we put on the face. So there we go. We get that into place, and now we're going to add those feathers out. And we are using New Zealand white. This is my New Zealand, here it is. Here's New Zealand white. Nice, white, fluffy, beautiful. Okay, this is my suggestion. You're going to take off a little piece. It won't take much, but it's going to take lots of little not muches. So you're going to take off a little piece like this, and this is where your Sharpie scissors come in, and just cut about little 1 inch or so tufts for yourself. So just make a little pile and start with that. Take a tiny bit, like a little cluster, just like this is fine. Could be a little bit thinner if you're more comfortable. I'm going to work with I'm going to try my green 40 triangle needle, and we're going to come like just outside the eye socket, and put the middle of that little tuft, the middle of that little piece, just right above the eye socket, and that's where you're going to needle felt. So we created the eye socket first. Don't worry, try and go just outside the eye socket. You're going to needle felt in the middle there, a couple of tacks, and then fold this part out just like that, and then needle that, and needle it all the way up to that brown perimeter. Needle felt it all the way up to the brown perimeter there. And we're going to do that all the way around the eyes. So let me do one more. Let's do one more of those, and if it feels too big, just go with a little narrower piece, and turn your little guy, and again, just outside the eye socket, needle felt, and just fan your way all the way around. If you don't like using the 42 triangle, we'll try a different size. Go for a 38 triangle. You could use a more aggressive needle like a 38 star. Here's a 38 star. Now, I just don't want to compress. My goal is not to compress the parts that I've created too much already. I'm mostly just trying to attach. So then you fold this out and then tack that back down. And again, tack it all the way out to the brown line. Work your way around both eyes of your little guy until you get this wacky dude. So the only difference with him is he doesn't have our little wing guide. Oh, and his belly is covered in the white. So let me jump to that. So cover the face. This guy's belly is covered with the white. So you already see how to do that. And the only thing he's missing is our little wing line. So what you'll get to, I'll put this on just so it feels like we're working on the same guy. Let me just tack it sort of in place. And swing it around. These little guys are kind of fun to make. I want to make a few different ones for sure, but I always say that and then we're on to the next project. I always say that. Okay, I have made a few already, but I always want to make a few different variations that I do. Okay, there's our faux wing. It probably could come over a little bit more, but this is nothing more than a placeholder. But what we have is this really wacky little owl guy. And so now we can, once you've trimmed both your eyes that way, or you could do it one at a time, totally fine, then we're just going to go around and trim it. Now, I'm going to trim it initially just outside that brown line. Just trim it with your fine scissors and trim it just outside of it. You don't really want to go too much inside until you know exactly where you want it, and then you can get a little bit closer. If it's laying down, and then go in and trim it a little like this, so you kind of trim it away and you don't have such blunt ends. Trim it just like that. Thinner out. Now this one, you probably can't tell, but this one I use New Zealand Natural Light, which has some little dark bits in it. So use whatever you like. It depends on whatever owl you're making. You know, they're not all white. I'm going to trim this a little bit closer because I want to just barely see that brown. Just barely see it. So I'm going to trim both of these, and this guy's going to have to carry us the rest of the way. And you can also angle your scissors, you know, rather than just cut straight. You can angle them a little bit so the inside's a little bit less. And you know, the worst thing that happens if you mess it up and you don't like it is you just put them back. Just do them again. Rip them out and do them again. Okay, so I'm going to trim these, and y'all let me know if you have any questions while I trim side 2.
Sylvia shares, I'm having difficulty getting my long fiber to attach. Do you have any tips?
Okay, for the long fiber to attach, are you folding it in the first place? So notice that we folded it, and that's part of the key. And then I would ask, what size needle are you using? So if you're using an aggressive needle, it should actually be plunging into your shape and almost wanting to misshape your piece. So I imagine that maybe your needle is too fine, and you want to try a needle that's slightly more aggressive than the one you have now. So try and go up a gauge of needle. That's going to be folding it, and that, because in this case you don't want to put like another wool anchor in there. That's going to create bulk that you don't want. So that would be my suggestion, is get a little more aggressive needle. Go up a notch, which is down a number. Okay, so now I'm going to trim this guy a little bit. I don't think you can get these guys wrong. You know, the idea wasn't to make an exact realistic owl. Like I said, it was just the essence of barn owl. So for those of you who are better at realism, course, look forward to any of your tips. You can always give those in our group. And if you're just tuning in, this is what we're making. We're making this little barn owl ornament. And if you're not in our Facebook group, I'll pop it up there for you. You have to answer a few questions to be accepted in the group because we don't allow in the spam us, just to keep it fun. It's very supportive. There's no critiquing. It's all love and encouragement and sharing of tips. All right, we have this great little face going. We have this little nose bridge happening, and we want to put our eyes in and our little beak, and that's really going to finish out our face. Some people might want to put a little more wool on the, like, long fibers on the chest. You would do the same folding technique. I'm not going to fool with that on my guy. And if you want to clean up your foam, we always clean up our foam. We just use these magic little lint rollers and away it all goes. And peel it out. But keep your foam clean. You want to keep your foam clean, not just for your next project, but also just for the functionality of your foam. Okay, let's do our little nose bridge next. And so what I have here is peachy. This is what I chose for my beak. You might use something else. We're going to do the exact same technique for the very tip of the beak as we did for the nose bridge. But it's just on a smaller scale. So I'm going to take a tiny bit of fiber here. I'll take a couple of them, just like this. And I'm going to again use my felting needle and fold it around. And in this case, notice how tiny, notice how tiny this is. So we're just making a tiny, 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 what's going to be a little beak. And that beak just seems to poke out underneath their feathers. So you don't want it too big, but it is going to be folded again, so you want it longer than it ultimately is going to be. So here we have, I'll pull it off now, you can see this little guy. He's very tiny. And again, I'm just going to kind of bury him with a fold at the very tip of this little nose bridge. So again, he's going on backwards, you can see that. I'm going to try the 40 triangle first, and I'm going to just bury the end right into the end of his little nose bridge there. Okay, that is there, and then we'll fold it back over so that we can tuck it in, just like that. And that this tip part is also going to go in there. If it feels too long, you can trim it. So I'm going to just trim off just the very end and see about folding it under there. So it's folded back up on top of itself, see? And now I'm just going to needle felt it right into that nose bridge. And you can bury the end just like we did the hidden end underneath. Bury it underneath. And sculpt it down. Now you can also go back just like we did with the feathers on the face coming around the eyes. You can do the same here on the nose if you want to get very detailed about that, and you can bring them coming up. You could also just, you could take some of these fibers and just anchor them to come up, or you could leave it just like it is. It's really up to you. And you can also just trim the top with dark if you want. So if you want to do a single, you might just gather some little wispies like this. And again, you'll come up over the nose bridge. You can anchor them here and then bring them up. I'm not all that fussy about it. I'm fine if the face is semi-fuzzy, and I'm fine with that shape. But you could anchor them just coming up this way, and you could also do the double fold just like we did. Optional is to add a little dark line down the front, and you might decide that after you have your eyes in place. So to get our eyes in place, let's drop a little of this clay into the eye socket, and if you want, you can also bring some up from around that nose bridge. Like I said, study a few different critters and see what you like, and you might like the eyes slightly accented. Some of them you can see a real definitive line coming off the eye down to that point of the nose. funny thing about making these little guys is like 1 minute you love it and then you add something else to it and you extra love it. Or not. Or you add something and you don't like it as much, but you can take it off, you know? So I'm just dropping a little dark bit down. I'm not even really shaping it, doing all the shaping right on the bird, because we just want a little accent be what's going to be behind the eye and right down that little nose bridge. Like I said, if you don't like it, you can take it out, whatever that is. And you can also add these details and then add those feathers on top, and then it really makes these like a suggestion underneath, if you know what I mean, because there's like darkness underneath there. Let's get our glass eyes into place. The glass eyes come on a little rod like this, and you only need as much wire as you need. The only real tip is to cut them at a nice angle so that they'll go in, and I'm probably going to cut these two just that long. They don't need to be all that long. That's 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little more, 1/3 of an inch. Cut this here. We're over. I knew we couldn't do this in an hour. All right, so now with our eye sockets, we did create the eye sockets a moment ago, but now you want to do it again and get your fingers out of the back side if your bird's not very big. So just in case your needle goes all the way through, you don't pokey your finger. And now your eyes should actually be able to just poke right into those slots. And if you want to glue them, if they don't go in, just poke the hole again. But if you want to glue them, now is the time to get your space first, and then you can just dip your little eye pole into the glue. Dip it in there. I think I'm hitting my wire. I need to go back straight. If there's resistance, just try again. I have bent my there. He's so cute. I need a little pet one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there we go. Our owl has eyes now. Now you can see I've actually, that plunging those holes, I covered up some of the brown I put on there, and that's no worry actually, because you can always add a little trim. You know, if you decide you want that to show, you can add a little trim right around it after you put it in, or you can just lift it a little bit and tuck it back underneath. No worries, especially since we didn't put any glue yet. But I would say make sure your eyes are in and where you want them before you put any glue on there, because you want to avoid the wool, any glue sitting on the top of the wool, because it's going to ruin your little fluffy look. So I'm going to tuck that back under there, and we're going to get cooking on this guy and get his wings in place. He's going to take us the rest of the way. There we go. Okay, cool. So we have face, we have body. Cover your body in white, like we said. And now's the time to pull your wings back onto the scene. So we're going to start with these guys. And these guys help define how he's laying. The rounded part goes towards the chest, just like that. And again, if your wings seem too long, this is the part to cut, because this is the part that you can cut off. But these wings are meant to be longer than the body, and we decided to make him legless, just a little hanging ornament. So that's about how much longer I want them than that body, at least for me. Now, aesthetically, yours can be any way you want. And see how we have all of this wool sticking off? This becomes our attachment. So I actually want his wing a little more like this, because I want it to look like his head is turned. And I'm going to take, because it's right here on his chest. I am going to go ahead and take a little bit of that off, but I'm going to take it off of both of them at the same time. If his head wasn't turned, they don't look too long because the shoulders seem like they're in a different place. But because his head is turned, it looks like they're just sticking up too much onto his face. So I'm going to take, and what we're going to do is fill in the rest of this up here with wool. So I'm going to put him on there just like that, and we're going to needle felt, use your 38 star perhaps, and tack this down to the body. So what you find is that the wool felt will attach to the body, and that's very satisfying, but also these parts that you left sticking off will attach to the body, and that's very helpful. And we just want to anchor all of that down. And you can anchor right up to, you know, these parts of the wings are not going to show depending on how you design your bird. And if they are, well, then you can still tack your design elements right on top, depending on how you decide to make your little guy. I was first making him without adding these additional wings on, and then I just decided it would be fun to take it, you know, just to that next level. And so it looks like there's wings sitting on his body. So now these are going to be a little bit more over to this side, and that gives you the idea that his head is turned slightly. And so this one will go on this side. Get both of these wings in place first, and so you'll focus on the chest there. And if it feels like your wings don't want to quite anchor on, like through the felt, if it feels like your wings don't want to anchor on through the felt, you can just put a little patch of wool there to, you know, if maybe the felt that you're using is acrylic felt and it's not working quite so well, then put a little patch of wool to join the two, like a little staple. Okay. With these front wings in place, and our bird is looking like he's turned right now, I'm pretty happy with that. We want to get these back wings into place. Let's get the little tail bridge in first. And tail feather, tail bridge. I make up these words. My bird, my words. So with this, you know, the design really comes down to you. I'm using a little bit of willow and a little bit of dark chocolate. They both go so well together. And I'm just going to create a little bit of design on the tail, on this tail feather here. I'm going to just blend this a little bit with my fingers, a little finger blending. I will drag a little line across from one point to the other. And you can do a couple of those. You can also use the willow. I'm going to use the willow on more of the other feathers. You can use a little bit of the white if you like, the CX2 white, or even the coral white. Both will add. We're going to be sculpting this so all of these lines will get broken up. They won't look like solid lines. Now this little guy, I want him to be just underneath here. And what we're going to do is see all of this stuff that we didn't make really firm. Now we are going to needle felt in them and shape it. Oh, I didn't cover this part. Sorry. Let me jump over here. I didn't cover the back of my bird with caramel, and I need to do that now. That I was forgetting the just this little back part of the tail right here. We want to cover that with the caramel. So while I do that, do I have any questions to answer?
We have got a few questions. Let's see. A few of our felting friends want to know, could you make the feathers separately to make the wings more defined?
Sure, you can make them that way. Yes, absolutely. This was really designed as like a quickie-ish Christmas ornament, you know, something you could make in a day. But if you're wanting to make a more realistic owl, then study the wing patterns, the feather patterns. You can absolutely make them separate. You absolutely can.
Gemma asks, is there a way to make movable wings?
If you want your wings to be movable, then you would probably put wire in them, but I would caution you on posing something too much with wire in the wings, because eventually that wire can snap inside your bird, and that would be very unsatisfying if they snap in there. So you might look at some different kind of jointing system used for clay creatures than just wire, because a wire will eventually snap. They're too brittle. Okay, so we have this little tail piece here, and that little part's covered now. And what we're going to do, I'll start with a 38, is we're going to use what is the looseness of this little tail feather and needle felt up like these little lines. So here's one line, if you will. I'm just sort of making up a line, dividing this little tail feather into thirds and needle felting it right into the body of the bird, just like that. And then you can use a little more gentle needle to sculpt these sides. So we're able to put a straight line across, but then because we're sculpting that line down, it gets a nice little blend to it, a nice shaping to it, if you will. Again, this is really, I mean, if you want to do a very realistic owl, it'll definitely take a lot more study of each of the individual parts. And there are definitely some artists in our group who have made amazing owls over the years. And this was meant to be a little quicker than those. Okay, so then these wing parts that they don't have any felt inside. What I do is usually the longer piece is towards the front, and this is going to come pretty much all the way to the front of this wing here. And I'm just showing you like my shortcut for getting the wing patterns on. I'll show you how I did this, how I got to this patterning. So I'm going to kind of match it to the front of this wing here, and we only want it to go to the center of the back. So the first thing we'll do is get the front where we want it and attach it. Maybe just start with your 42 triangle. Notice I just took a little underneath part that was there, and I'm going to tack down this front gently, so that is laying right on this under wing. That is just a gentle blending of two parts while still making them look like they're both independently there. You can add a little touch of brown under there if you want to give it, like this one has a little touch of dark brown, add it in to give it a little more definition. But then what you can do is jump to what's the back of the middle and bring this, only this is your middle guide, right? Because you divided this into 3. So then let this guy come right to here. Tack him down. And then what we do is all of these little clay lines that we put in, now we're going to tack those down one at a time, and that'll sort of make this little feather division. So first, just tack down the lines. And now we're starting to add that shaping. Just tack down the lines first. These parts are going to pucker inside. Right now they're loose, but we're going to needle felt them down and they'll be firm. Okay? And this one right here too. So needle felt that down. And so you can see those clay lines, they were really just guides, and they're just little under accents that we put on. And right here at the base of each little wing section, I just needle felt it up a little bit. So now's the time when your patience and detail is really going to come into play. And we can get the second wing on, and then I'll show you how to pattern them. So while I do that, do y'all have any questions I can answer?
Yes, Eileen wants to know, are you only needle felting right now the parts where the separate pieces are joining, or should you go back over all of the parts?
We will be going back over all of the parts. Yes, absolutely. So right now, I'm just needle felting in between those lines, but we're going to needle felt over all these parts, and we have to add all the detailing. So partly adding all that detailing is going to help create the firmness as well. Now these two wings I'm just overlapping actually. Okay. So get that middle join, and then needle felt in all your lines. That middle join is kind of important back there, and then go up and you can do your front too. Again with my green needle. Okay. All of these parts, again, just go up your little clay lines and let it, you know, when you put your clay line in, when you do these little stripes that we have in here in the wings, you do want this part to buckle. You want it to kind of pillow out, because that's what we're going to needle felt down and give our bird a little more dimension. And this one. This is going, honestly, y'all, this, I always on the show, it's always a lot faster than it takes me on my own. I never needle felt the bird in an hour or even an hour and a half. So take your time. There's no rush. There's no rush to be the first one to post yours in the group. There's no rush to, you know, be the first one to finish. There's no competition at all in our group or in doing this. It should really just be fun. All of it should just be fun. Well, I like how this little guy is looking. It looks like he's sort of facing us. It looks like he's sort of turned, you know, he's turned a little bit sideways. And all of this part is loose. But before we get into all of this patterning and detailing, let's go ahead and put a little color on the back of his head. And again, I'll go with the clay, and then what we'll do is we'll get all of our patterning in at the same time. Now, if you didn't like, let's say you're looking at the back of your owl head and you really wanted it to be more round, I'm going to leave this one just like it is, or you thought it needed more shape in some way. What you could do, either with your core wool or your dyed wool, I'll just show you if you're having that challenge. I often have dolls with like a flat head, is you could take a little piece like this and just stack it, so that you start to make a little mound, and just you know, keep letting it get smaller until it's going to kind of fit where you want it. So you just make a little stack, and then you could needle felt that right to the back of the head or something if you wanted it more round. Now would be the time to do it and get that shaping in and just blend all of that in. This little guy I'm going to leave just like he is, and we're just going to cover him. And it's very easy to piece with this fiber. It's very easy just to piece on where you want it. He's so cute. Okay, I'm going to needle felt this on, and now is a great time if y'all have any questions.
Let's see. Jeanette shares that she's so cute she can't wait to make him.
Oh.
Gemma says, is there a measuring tool that you like to use to help keep your lines straight as you're adding them?
So Jenna, who was it, Gemma? Gemma, thank you for the question, wants to know, is there a measuring tool? Gemma, I'm an eyeballer myself. I don't do a lot of measuring. Any measuring I do is usually for teaching purposes because people ask me, but the only thing is, like, these lines don't even really need to be straight. We're gathering everything up, but I don't really use a tool for things like that. I might do like I showed you, which is, I know I need to divide something, I'll start here, and then fill in the middle. But I don't do a lot of measuring. And again, you know, I'm not a realistic artist, so that might be part of it. Someone who does more realism might spend more time on that type of thing than I do. Anyone can suggest tools that they like to use for those who are more comfortable measuring. That would be good. Let us know what you like. So notice all this loose fiber here. The batting is just so dreamy. You can just kind of guide it to go where you want. And another thing about it is, anything that you don't like, you can cover up with another little tiny patch. It patches over really well. And if it's not all that fun working with one, well then now, at least just on this head part, is you could work with this little cluster and just tack it all down. Before we add any patterning, we just want to tack all of this down and get it relatively smooth. But you want them to look a little fluffy. This also really is just such a good shaping tool. Now that wool is kind of laying down. I will spend time going around and getting all of those parts really smoothed out. And also on the face here, like anywhere if you feel like your lines are too hard of the caramel, then what you can do is just put a little patch of white back over it. That head, like the head is a little sparse. You don't want the white showing through. Cover it up now. Don't leave it undone. You don't want to spend all that time and then not like what you just made. So all you have to do is put another little patch on just like that and then tack it down. All right. Now, let me show you how I do the patterning. It's the patterning on the wings, and it's just a suggestion, but you'll see why we kind of got all these gray lines in first. So what we're going to do with each wing is go around now, needle felt in the line, and needle felt the part that is kind of pillowed up. We're not driving the needle now back to the center of the sculpture. What we're doing is just barely using the first two notches on these felting needles to kind of go down and compact all of this into place. You want it so that when you run your hands across your owl, this stuff does not come off. It doesn't come loose. You want to be able to run your hands across it, handle it, toss it in your ornament box for the year, you know, pack it away and unpack it for years to come without it coming apart and the fibers not being attached enough or felted enough to stay in place. And if you want the fuzzy effect, it would be better something fuzzy like these face fuzz rather than under felting something. Felt it all the way and anchor the fuzz in really well rather than under felt to get a fuzzy or furry look. It would be better to make it firm. Okay, and the firmer it is, the understructure, then the easier it will hold on to or be able to anchor in the fuzzy fibers that you want to apply. Okay. Now this is kind of Marie's real quick method. Those of you who know me and felt it with me for a while know that this is the part that I like to nerd out on, is spending a lot of time just poking away. But let's look at this patterning. This is sort of like a quick and dirty kind of patterning. So first, let's look at just adding a little bit of color. This wool is so easy to take off like a little thin piece. Then you can, without thinking about it too much, I want to put it, just come on the back of the head, just a little bit on the back of the head and a little bit down the top of the wings like this, without thinking about it too much. You might want to just get all into the nitty gritty, but that's just a start for adding a bit of color to the head and the wings. And anything you don't like, peel off or cover up or add more. If you like it, add more. But the key is to kind of spread that out so that it's not stuck too much in one place and let the underneath color show through. Then to get to a little more specific patterning on the wings, and I'll just show you on one wing so we can finish this guy and look at how to mount him. If you do both wings on the body like this, it's a little bit easier. What you're going to do is take your willow in willow or a blend of colors that you like, whatever colors you like, and we're going to kind of get these long little lines going just like we've been working with already. Start at the bottom of the wings or the top of the wings, whatever you're comfortable with, and I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to pin this little guy. Don't be sad, he doesn't mind. Okay, I'm going to pin him just so he stays in place. And we'll just start with a little piece like this, and let's go over each little pillow part. So I'll start here, and I'll start right at the bottom with my fine needle. What I'm going to do is take this brown, this is willow, run it all the way across, and mostly needle felt it just onto the pillow parts, a little less onto the parts where the clay lines are running, and then just take your scissors and snip where the clay bit is, like this. So if you don't tack it down where the wings dip into that line, then you can just come back And they don't all have to be in an exact straight line. Like if you look at the wing patterns, you'll see it depends on the position of the wings. Sometimes they look like they're in the back. Sometimes it looks like they're coming this way. It depends on how their wings are opened. But they're also not all in a row. Like 2 will be up and 2 will be down. So you can break it up a little bit and don't worry about this line being so straight. But you might like to do 2 wings at a time, meaning, you know, once they're both on the bird rather than trying to do them off. I did them off also, and I found that this was actually much easier if you just do it on this part anyway, on the bird, because you can see where the wing actually falls. So all I'm doing again is skipping where the clay is and needle felting it onto the more pillowed parts. And I only tack it down initially because I don't want them all to be in a straight line. So I want to be able to shift that line a little bit once I cut it. I want to be able to shift it so there's a little bit more of irregularity, which is just like life, right? I mean, how many of us, our ears are the exact same position on our head? Mine aren't. Mine are lopsided. Every pair of glasses drives me bonkers because I actually put little silicone things on my glasses to make them fit. Drives me bonkers. And I just want to move that line a little bit. I just want to scoot it so it's not exactly straight. But I think once you do both of them, and you can break it up a little bit so you don't have to do it all in lines. You can just do one here and snip it. Depends on how you're feeling, you know. One here, just offset it a little bit and snip it, shape it, round it, do whatever feels good for you. That's the most important thing about needle felting, y'all, is that you have fun. We don't judge what each other does. Nobody's really the all-knowing Oz. Everybody, you know, that's the thing about art, is everybody has a perspective to contribute, and that to me is the best thing. Like, you know, you could make your owl purple, like our fantasy owls, but in this style. Anything you want goes. So no rules in art, at least when you're playing with us. We just want you to have fun, and our goal is always to teach a human to felt. Notice I didn't say woman or man, but so it's like teach a man to fish, teach a human to felt, because we don't want to. It's not like sewing. This is so much more free than sewing a quilt block. And I love sewing, and I love cutting quilt squares. But sometimes you need a little more freedom of expression, and that's what felting is so good for. So there's no one way, and you don't have to follow a pattern. Just have fun. So I think those wings are kind of coming along, don't you think? They're starting to look. Let's just finish this one, and I'll bring a couple more up here. It'll just make it feel a little more finished for us. And tell me, what's anyone saying? How's everybody feeling?
Oh my gosh, so many folks are excited for this. Peg says, it's funny you're thinking purple because I was going to make my owl purple.
Ah!
Let's see, going back to the glass eye, or applying the eyes, a couple folks want to know, can you needle felt eyes in?
Oh, sure. People want to know, can you felt? Absolutely. You know, the reason, so this is being a Christmas ornament, it's nice to have something that kind of will catch the light of the Christmas tree. And you can even use, little glass beads or something, but you can absolutely needle felt in eyes and just use wool. Absolutely. And just use the same process that we did. You absolutely can. You can embroider the eyes if you want. Absolutely. So I think that kind of tells the story a little bit more once we have the whole wing made out. Add some random ones. They don't all have to be perfect. Fill in. If your eye sees a gap, fill it in. That's the only rule. If your eye sees a gap, fill it in. So I like this guy, and he's kind of turned a little bit. I want to show you how to hang him, The first thing is, and so obviously you'll do the same on the other side, and once we get this part mounted, I'll answer any final questions you have. But one thing that bugs me with an ornament is when you go to hang it on the tree and you want this part facing out, and no matter what you do, he's like this. It's like the most annoying thing. Anne's nodding her head. It's the most annoying thing to me. And so I want to show you how you can hang them on a pretty ribbon or the jute twine if you want, and what's my method for doing that. And this is a method that is kind of a no-risk method, meaning you can fix it any time if it breaks on you. So here's this. The first thing we're going to do is to take that long doll needle that Kayla showed you at the beginning of the show, a 5-inch doll needle, and I have mine threaded with a very strong polyester thread. It just coats extra strong. It's an upholstery thread. So this is not included in the kit. You'll need to get your own strong upholstery thread. And what we're going to do is just like we're going to run a staple down through the top of the body. So in order to do that, we need to come up through the bottom of the body first. And the position I've chosen for this is behind the wings, because then you won't see them. So we are going to come, my table's a mess. Oh, but y'all can't see. You can't see all the mess, so let's go back to overhead. Here's where we're going to go. We're going to take, the needle is threaded and it's very long. Get way more thread than you need so you feel confident. We're going to come up underneath the wings right here, and what we want to do is come out the top of the head somewhere and just find the spot. You might have to fish a little bit to find the spot. And you can always undo this if you don't like it. So here I am. My needle is right here. That's pretty good. It's about at the top of the head where I wanted it to be. And I'll just tell y'all, if y'all can see this fuzzy, I'm going to have to go back tonight and finish him because I'm nerdy like that. All right, so what you want to do is pull your thread all the way through the top of the head and leave a big tail. So we have a big tail hanging out here. Give yourself about 1/4 of an inch. You only need this yarn, ribbon that we're giving you here. It's a 3/8 inch double satin, so you want it to be at least as wide as your ribbon. So what you'll notice is, I'm almost doing it wrong, see? It's my habit, so I already have to redo this. We want to let me start over. We're going to run this staple. I had to do it a few times. So we're going to run the staple in the direction that you see the needle. From here to here is the staple that we're going to run, not from here to here. So the staple of, if you can see that, that's the thread that we're running through. So we're going to come up through the bottom. Here we go one more time, sorry for that. And going to come to the middle of the head, but you can come a little more towards the front or a little more towards the back. So try and line it up with your little widow's peak right there. Come all the way out, leave a big tail, go back down about 1/4 of an inch, and we want to come right back out where we were, which is underneath the wings. And this can be a little tricksy, but you want to kind of come right in between these two big wings if you can, underneath there somewhere, but not through them. You want it to be underneath them, just like that. I don't know if you can see that, but my needle's coming out right there. Now, don't lose your piece. So stick something there, remind yourself, or stick your ribbon always wants to fall out, but just stick a pen for the moment to hold your spot so you can pull this down, because we're making like a little staple. And you just want to remember to leave a spot. So we're going to pull our thread, take your needle off, and then now you can run your ribbon through. And your ribbon can be longer, you don't have to cut it to size first. But so we have this little loop here, and we're just going to run our ribbon through so that we have it in place. So the ribbon's through, and now you can pull this tight, and you want to pull it really tight. And that's why you have the really strong thread, is so that you can. So now we're going to tie a knot here, or a couple of knots, whatever you feel comfortable with, and pull it super tight. And that's going to plunge your ribbon sort of into the top of your head. Pull it tighter than you think you need, because you always lose some tension as soon as you go to finish the knot. And bring it back through. Pull it tight. And so you can do that a couple of times if you feel more comfortable. And you want to just trim it, so since it's under there, if you pull it really tight and you snip it, then the rest of it will just go away. And now, oh, I snipped the knot. Can you believe that? What is my luck to snip the knot just now? I pulled it so tight that I snipped the knot. Okay, I'm laughing. I'm going to redo this because we're going to finish with this owl. So y'all ask me any final questions while I laugh at my own gaffe. Thread it. That's just perfect. That's funny.
Brittany wants to know, if you end up needle felting your eyes, and do you have to make the eye sockets as deep?
You don't, but you don't want the eyes sitting on top of the face. That's one of the most common things I see with animals or even dolls. With dolls, it's forgetting to give them an eyelid, when you're making like a humanoid type being. And with animals and stuff, it's to put an eye like on the surface as opposed to embedding it in. So definitely give it an eye socket. Everything has an eye socket. So definitely give it an eye socket. You could give them even eyelids if you wanted to be really detailed about it, but definitely give them an eye socket. Okay, here we go. We're going to do this. We're going to finish this guy. I'm determined now on this show.
Jane asks, instead of using thread, could you snip a hairpin, the top of a hairpin, and glue that in so that it would hold thread?
I don't know. I mean, I think I know what you're saying, like a bobby pin maybe. I don't know. I would say give it a try. I definitely thought of wire, because if I look at my ceramic ornaments, we have a very eclectic tree at home, and if I look at my ceramic ornaments, that's what this design is based off of, is wire being mounted into that ceramic ornament. But what I liked about this is that it's fixable. If it breaks, like you see, I just gaffed it, but it's fixable. So that means any year it breaks, if it broke for some reason, you could fix it. Okay, here we go. We're going to go back to tying my knot. So you definitely could give that a try. In fact, it's kind of hard to work around wire when you're needle felting, but you could, and it's something I considered, but you're on the same mindset, but I just decided not to do for this project, is you could anchor that wire in advance in your little chenille stem and make that wire loop and have it sticking out, but you'd have to know how long you need it to be. You'd have to know, and you'd have to work around it the whole time. I have some really old, like Japanese or Chinese ornaments, who knows which, I don't know honestly. They're probably made in Korea, but they're vintage, like 50s ornaments, and they are like a little wooden peg figure, and they have a little chenille stem just sticking out the top. It's like all it is. And some of them have just thread, and they're wood or whatever, and you can't fix them anymore because there's nowhere to put it. But in this case, you can always run it back through the body. So here we go. I have that. I'm not going to cut my knot this time. I just love that I messed that up, because that makes it a little more real. Okay, I'm going to cut those threads. There we go. And if you do have any threads showing, you could always cover them with wool. And you could also go back around, once you have the eyes done, you don't want them to have like fuzzy eyes. Take your little scissors and trim anything that is around the eye. And if you gift this, what a fun way to you can add a little sentiment or something to your little owl and attach it right to the thread. And certainly we want to do some more, not more, but we want to do a number of handmade ornament and Christmas gift items this year, because we know so many people probably aren't going to spend time with family like they normally do, and making some ornaments. A lot of people have more time now than they might have in a normal year to make some ornaments, and these would be a really fun little gift to give, I think. So, whoops. I'm switching my wrong thing. So these are our needle felted owl ornaments. And if you're just tuned in, we do have in the description after the live show, you'll be able to download a supply list for these, but you can also grab a kit. These are ready to ship, and the kit is going to come with all of the wool. It'll come that I use today, more than you need to make this owl. If you want to make multiple, grab yourself some more core wool, and the core wool is included, but there's just enough core wool to make about one. You'll also get the glass eyes, and you'll also get the ribbon. The only actual thing that we use that you won't have is this thread. But if you make them, we hope that you'll share them in our Facebook group, and make sure also, if you're on Instagram, to tag us at Living Felt on Instagram so we can see your owls. And I always make an ornament for my family tree every year, and so this will be the very first one of the year, is the owl ornament. I guess the other one will be for the Living Felt tree. So thanks y'all for felting with us. We're going to actually give away some prizes now. So Anne's going to come up. She has been writing your names down as you've been contributing to the conversation, haven't you? Previously, this basket is full of names. So Anne, what are we giving away today?
Today we are giving away the Needle Felting a Barn Owl kit.
Yay! So we're going to give away, for people who've been watching the live show, you've been participating in the chat, asking questions, offering ideas, and of course I'm going to spend my evening looking back at all of those wonderful things that you were contributing so I can see what your ideas are. We're going to pull 2 names now, and if your name doesn't get pulled, well then you have another chance to enter after the live show. Comment down below, tell us what was your favorite takeaway, maybe tell us if you like our MC1 batting, just tell us something good. Tell us something good. Anne's going to pull it right now. And you'll get entered to win. We'll give away prizes next week.
First name, Pam Blackmer.
Woohoo! Pam Blackmer. And I have Cat Hand. Congratulations, gals. Thank you so much for felting with us today. Hey, we missed you on Woolly Wednesday, and thank you for spending time with us now. I know it was a long hour and a half, but I hope you had fun. I hope you'll make a cute little barn owl ornament, or whatever you make as a result of today's lesson. Just have fun with it. Put your heart into it. Don't judge it. Your spirit is really all that it needs to be infused with to make it magic. We appreciate you. Take good care of yourself. Bye, y'all.
Bye.